if we're ready, we will continue on with the Gurteen application in High Street, Mayfair.
Thank you, Chair. Since the late papers were circulated, we have received a further 16 representations objecting to the application for you and a further 8 which were unattributable. The application we have is for listed building consent for the provision of a service core in Building 7 and the demolition of 5 buildings with associated remedial works to the buildings and the site as a whole. The application relates to the 19th century factory complex known as Chauntry Mill. It's operated by Gurteens and is in the High Street in Haverhill. The site plan shows the extent of the site with the boundaries outlined in red. The church is just to the north of the site and the High Street runs off to the east. This plan identifies the separate buildings which form the complex and they're numbered for ease of reference. This application concerns buildings 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 11. The proposed internal alterations to Building 7, which is this property, which is known as the French Gothic building, are to facilitate the use of the southern end of the building for use of offices independently from Gurteens. Access would be provided by the existing level access entrance, which is the white doorway you can see on the photograph. This is the existing floor plans of the building. There is an existing lift and toilet at the southern end of the building, which is the left-hand end as you look at the screen. The only staircase is at the extreme north end, the right hand of the picture. And note also the building does consist of 2 parallel ranges which are separated by a spine wall through the middle. This is with the proposed floor plans with the new service core inserted. The existing lifts are retained and a new staircase and toilets are located in the same area to create a core that runs throughout the whole building. This would free up the office space at the southern end of the building, which could then be let separately. No objections have been received in respect of this part of the application. In connection with these proposals, the demolition of 5 buildings is also proposed. The demolition is required to allow the western-facing offices to have natural light and ventilation and to provide car parking. It will also allow Building 4 to be brought into a viable use. The individual buildings proposed for demolition are described in detail in your report, and I will run through some photos of them so you're familiar with them. This property is Building 5, known as the Horsehair Factory. It was originally part of a much larger complex of a brewery and maltings. Gurteens leased the property and then eventually acquired the property and brought it back into their factory use. This is a view of the building from the churchyard, and you can see the front of Building 4 just to the left. This is a closer view of it where you can see it's been truncated from the demolition of the other parts of the property. The proposal here is to remove the building, keeping the front elevation which you can see there, which would then be lowered and capped to form part of the boundary wall matching the one next to it. This is Building 6 on your plan, and it's called the Tunnel Infill property. It was built to provide a covered link between Buildings 4 and 8. This is one elevation, and this is the other side, and also the white canopy would be removed as part of the demolition proposals as well. This is Building 8, known as the Sewing Factory. This adjoins the west elevation of Building 7, and the distinctive roof line was to allow as much natural north light as possible into the building, and this type of construction is known as a north light factory for that reason. That's just a closer view of the roof line, and you can also see in front of you the metal clothing rails which are used by Gurteens for getting clothing into the building for storage. You can see by the shape of it there is quite a drop in level at that part of the site. This slide is just to show the relationship between Buildings 7 and 8, and you can see how the roof lines do affect the windows on the back of Building 7. The building in the foreground on the right is Building 9. This is a modern building built in the 60s, which joins onto the southern end of Buildings 4 and 7. This slide is just to show the extent of that property, and you'll also see the red staircase actually provides the means of escape from the upper floors of Building 7, with the green corrugated covered staircase joining onto it. This is the other end of Building 9, where again you can see quite a distinct change in level on the site. These two buildings are collectively known as Building 11. They comprise a boiler house and a workshop. This is the boiler house, and the smaller building is the workshop. These elevations are intended to show the buildings following the complete demolition of the buildings proposed. You will see from this slide, this slide, that obviously the windows and doors in the rear of Building 7 are revealed and would admit natural light and ventilation and allow an easier access into the property. This plan would show, is intended to show the site when the whole of the demolition is being completed. Obviously, some external works are required to improve the site to provide car parking for the offices, which would obviously include Gurteens' own offices, as they are going to keep their offices in Building 7, and new offices which would be formed. The landscaping is intended to be improved. The offices that are going to be offered are high market offices, high-end offices, so obviously the site would need to reflect that quality. This building shows potential phasing of the demolition. The demolition would not take place in one go. Paragraph 136 of the NPPF requires that local planning authorities should not permit the loss of whole or part of a heritage asset without taking all reasonable steps to ensure new development would proceed after the demolition. The proposed end scheme for the site is a long-term aim. The proposed demolition would therefore be phased in order to minimise the harm to the site and ensures that demolition would only take place as the next phases of reuse of the existing buildings and redevelopment of the site become certain. A condition requiring a detailed phasing scheme, including the triggers for that demolition, is to be submitted as required as a condition on a listed building consent approval. That way we can control the demolition and ensure that it doesn't take place without further development being positive. The factory complex at the moment is underused. The manufacturing process has changed dramatically since the buildings were built, and they are no longer fit for their original purpose. New uses are therefore being considered to ensure that the buildings have a viable future. The buildings have been assessed in terms of their individual importance. Those proposed for demolition fall into the low or moderate categories. Buildings 4 and 7 have been identified as of high importance. And Building 4 is the older range of Northlight buildings, and this would be retained. It also houses Caroline, the 1880 steam engine, which would be retained as part of that building as well. A development brief for the site was adopted in 2010, and this recognised that demolition of buildings of moderate importance would be permitted in exceptional circumstances where it was considered that their proper repair or reuse would basically harm their significance or would necessitate a lot of rebuilding, or that their retention would jeopardise the economic viability of an appropriate and acceptable scheme for the site as a whole. The brief also envisaged a mixed use for the site. The site has also been identified in Policy HV7 of the Haverhill Vision document as a brownfield site suitable for mixed use development. Paragraph 132 of the NPPF requires that substantial harm or loss of a Grade 2 listed building should be exceptional. Paragraph 133 further requires that planning authorities should refuse consent unless it can be demonstrated that substantial harm or loss is necessary to achieve substantial public benefits that outweigh the harm. A design principles document was prepared to identify the public benefits which could be achieved following the demolition of the buildings proposed and further development of the site. They're explained in detail in the document, which you should have had circulated with your late papers, but they do include the retention and reuse of the two most important buildings on the site, which are Buildings 4 and Building 7, the improvement to the appearance of the site, enhancing the setting of the listed buildings and the character and appearance of the conservation area. They would lead to improvements for residential amenity, particularly for the occupiers of properties along Mill Road. And there would be increased public access through the site and better linkages to the town centre. Economic development would arise from the new uses and development, which would contribute to the economic vitality and viability of the Haverhill town centre. A feasibility study identifying new uses for Building 4 is being prepared. Such uses may include heritage and tourism uses. At a recent meeting with the agent and English Heritage, it was agreed that a further condition be added to an approval of listed building consent, requiring that no demolition shall take place in respect of buildings 5, 6, 8, 9 and 11 until the feasibility study for building 4 has been completed and submitted to and agreed in writing by the local planning authority. This would strengthen the public benefits from the prospect of a viable new use for building 4 being found, and English Heritage did support the proposal to add this condition on. To summarise, and I do apologise for a long presentation, but to summarise, there is always a presumption against the loss of listed buildings, and the harm caused by a loss must be outweighed by commensurate public benefits. The factory site is no longer fit for purpose, and new uses must be found in order to secure its future. The close proximity of buildings 7 and 8 mean that the rooms within building 7 are compromised by building 8. Building 7 is of higher importance within the site and is therefore given priority. The internal arrangements of building 8, with numerous level changes and subdivisions, together with its overall condition, make it difficult to use for another purpose, and it compromises the internal spaces within building 7. Whilst the loss of any listed building is regrettable, the benefits to the overall site and Haverhill Town Centre, which would be possible following the demolition of the 5 buildings proposed, are considered to outweigh the harm which would be caused by the loss of the buildings. The requirement for demolition to be phased mitigates the harm by ensuring that demolition only takes place when necessary. Members are aware of the level of objection that has been received to the demolition. This application was submitted in July 2013, and since that time the proposals have been given thorough consideration. This recommendation is not made lightly or without due regard to the importance of the buildings and the site as a whole. Options for the reuse of the buildings have been explored, and this recommendation is made because it is considered to give the site the best possible chance of a viable future. The proposal is in accordance with local and national policy and the development brief for the site. It is therefore recommended for approval with the conditions set out in paragraph 52 of your papers, with an additional condition limiting the commencement of demolition to the satisfactory completion of the feasibility study. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we have 2 public speakers on this. One is John Burns, who's about to drop his camera and come and sit down and join us. And the other one is Michael Carpenter, who is the agent. Mr. Burns, you have 3 minutes. When you're ready.
Right. Thank you, Chair. Councillors, next week the first consultation stage of this council-sponsored master plan process for Haverhill Town Centre starts. No decision should be taken regarding this application until all the consultation stages have completed and the results pass back through One Haverhill. Granting approval will totally undermine the master plan process, especially as the site is a major part of that consultation. The Victorian Society, British Archaeological Trust Rescue and St Britain's Heritage have all objected, saying the application is contrary to NPPF paragraph 133. The Institute for Industrial Archaeology and many residents, including at least 10 in the last 24 hours alone, have all objected. English Heritage quote that they are not convinced that the substantial harm is not outweighed by the public benefit. They emphasise the Building 4 feasibility study must be completed before any decision is made on the demolition of other buildings. That study has not even started, although it's contrary to that, and directly affects Building 8 as they are conjoined. Even the master plan consultants have suggested that the heritage of the town should be preserved. All these heritage experts agree the application is against national policy, so why does one council officer think these highly respected organisations are all wrong? There is no justification to demolish the Grade 2 listed Northlight sheds, which are considered to be unusual and probably unique for East Anglia, being part of an extremely interesting Victorian mill complex. It is quite clear that no serious attempt has been made to find an alternative use for the sheds, as done successfully elsewhere in the country. In 2010, this council adopted a site development brief which specifically states buildings of moderate importance must not be demolished other than in exceptional circumstances. Building 8 is of moderate importance and there are no exceptional circumstances. The applicant's own design principle document suggests future development concepts, but this has not been agreed by anyone. Indeed, the master plan is not even worthy of a mention in that document. If allowed to proceed, we will be left with a derelict site which the applicants have already confirmed previously could remain so for several years. Remember, this application started life to demolish Grade 2 listed buildings purely for a car park in until English heritage objected. To put it bluntly, there were no replacement development plans, so this application is purely speculative. It does make sense to allow the demolition of buildings 9 and 10, which already has demolition approval, to allow a direct route from the Cleels car park across Quakers Lane into the site for vehicles. This will avoid the need for any commercial vehicle having to use the very narrow and congested Mill Road. These buildings have stood for over 160 years and are a testament to the industrial heritage of the town. If you decide to grant demolition approval now, then that heritage will be lost forever. Please therefore consider very, very carefully what you are voting on and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Right, Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Planning Officer, for what I think is a very detailed and balanced judgment that has to be made in this particular case. Let me assure you, please, that Gurteens fully understand the importance of the individual buildings on this site, but they also understand the importance of this site as a whole, and the site as a whole to the town centre and to the town as a whole. And the Haverhill Vision 2031 is the development plan document, and it identifies the site for a mixed use to contribute to the function and activity of the town centre. Delivering that vision is what this application is about. The understanding of the historical value of the individual buildings on this site is immense, with a huge amount of work being carried out over a number of years, both by the Borough Council and by Gurteens themselves, to identify the relative values of each of these buildings and what might be done to those buildings. And it led to the development brief that your council adopted. And can I be clear, just to emphasise again, that none of the high importance buildings are proposed to be demolished. In fact, this is about creating the opportunity for long-term sustainable viable uses in those buildings, so that the site can continue to make a valuable and modern day contribution to the town centre. In paragraphs 46 to 49 of the Planning Officer's report captures, I think, the essence of the planning judgment to be made, and that is, are there sufficient public benefits for the site as a whole, for the town centre as a whole, and so for the town as a whole, or would a refusal lead to a tired, unused site with buildings in a prominent location in the town centre? And that is the fear. As members will know, we've kept the town council and Hall and Battery 1 Haverhill informed of what we've been up to, what we've been investigating, what the markets have been telling us, what the viability have been telling us, and of course that will continue. One of the principal things that you must be concerned about is, does the Borough Council retain sufficient control over the delivery of this promise about delivering this site and making and keeping those promises? And the answer is yes, because in condition 3, referred to by the Planning Officer, does impose a phasing restriction on the demolition. That demolition can only take place once certain triggers are met, and those triggers relate to the delivery of those promises. So the completion of the building for feasibility study, no work at all can take place until then. Demolition of identified parts of the site, as you saw and you see from the slide on the screen now, can only take place as we do the works to the main, the most important buildings on the site, and we actually get tenants in. We can only
wind up, please.
Certainly. And we can only complete the demolition of works once we have found a use, an alternative use for building 4. So I think you can be assured of some good deal of control over what we're up to.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Right, benefits of the site visit. Councillor Byrne, I think it's your patch.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I am the councillor for this ward. This is an extremely difficult one for myself and for other councillors in the town. I think that the presentation from the officers was very balanced and very fair. However, I have major concerns that since the Town Council supported this, we have now in place consultants that are looking at the Haverhill High Street, their master plan. We've had 2 presentations from the consultants. They are very experienced. We have great faith in what they have suggested should be looked at for the High Street. And Gurteens is very much part of the master plan consultation. I'm going to ask colleagues not to vote either in favour or against, but I'd like to propose that this is moved back until the master plan consultation has been completed, which will include looking at the Gurteens site and the various suggestions for demolition. But they are going in September to be able to report back on the massive job of work that they've done. My biggest concern is about the Building 8, the North Light sheds, particularly because of the heritage value. And all I would say is the feasibility study hasn't been done, but once demolition starts, we've lost it when the master plan, hopefully, will look at that with some positivity and may be able to make some progressive suggestions on what that building could be converted to. So I'm not asking colleagues to do one or the other. I'm urging them to move this back till September when the master plan document, which is very key to what's going to happen in our High Street, absolutely key. They're talking about mixed retail and housing together. This may be a perfect opportunity for this site, but there's also an opportunity to save some of the buildings that look as though they're up for demolition. So I'm just urging colleagues to consider what's going on in Haverhill, to consider the master plan, and not forgetting this is the third master plan consultation we've had. We've got great faith in the consultants that are dealing with this one. And I'm just suggesting that we wait until September. And looking at the time that all of this is going to happen, it may be at that time, in 6 months' time, the feasibility study would have been started and we'll have a better view about it. So, colleagues, I am asking we delay any decision today on this until September, until Haverhill knows what's in store for them once the consultation's been completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on that, please?
Thank you. The master plan will still need to be in accordance with the Haverhill Vision document, which does allocate the site as a brownfield site for development, so I don't see that there are any conflicts there. Secondly, the time scale. Clearly, not a lot is going to happen on the Gurteens site between now and September, which again I think would conflict with the master plan process. The new development proposals won't have come forward by then. They are part of a much longer project for the site. And I would also say that the feasibility study is almost completed. We had a meeting on Tuesday in English Heritage where final comments were given back to the agent, and I believe that is almost finished. So that's not a long way off at all either. So I don't think that there is any conflict with the master planning for Haverhill, because I think it still all needs to accord with Vision 2031 in any case.
Thank you. Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, anybody who's been in Haverhill in recent months will know full well that there's been endless discussion about the town centre, and now we have a firm of consultants who are working on the problem and trying to produce a town centre which is fit for the 21st century and will attract more investment into the town and be a more attractive place to live and work. Now, most of Haverhill's heritage, I regret to say, has been destroyed, and I'm very anxious that we do keep the Gurteens buildings as much as they are worthy of the heritage mention. Building 7 is a classic building which is probably the most dominant piece of architecture in the whole of the town, and that we must conserve. However, the plan which has been put before us at the moment is only one of demolition. And there's no indication of how the site would be used subsequent to demolition. And I think in developing the town master plan, we need to know what we're going to do with the areas which are now exposed by demolition. And I again would support what Councillor Bernard said. Let's defer this plan until September, when the issues and options consultation is over, and we can then see, also encourage Gurteens to come forward with what they would like to do on the site.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask initially, in the master planning process, will that be decided within Haverhill, the Town Council, and the various bodies that are connected with it, or will it be decided eventually by this council? Can I have an answer to that before I continue?
And I think if you're referring to the town centre master plan, that will eventually, for us to adopt it, it will have to go through a process with the local planning authority to reach adoption.
Chairman, we had the benefit of site inspection. I've still got the great spattered plans that we took around and had a jolly good look at this site. And it all became absolutely clear as to what we need to do and how we need to go forward. The main worry, and this is what we've got to allay with the local residents, that we need a robust reassurance that the vision within that master plan will be brought forward and not blown off course by financial considerations. But we need to give this message from the committee that we are in favour of the proposed demolitions that are brought before us. Building 8 is a multi-layered building under the North Line canopy and would be a nightmare to develop in any sensible form. Whereas Building 4 is superb and has immense opportunities. I do tend towards waiting for the master plan to come forward with a robust vision of mixed-use development for the demolished buildings. I think it will have benefits for the essential historical assets, but also the commercial aspects of Central Haverhill. But if we don't give this clear message today that we are in favour of the demolition, we may miss the boat. So I urge Haverhill to ensure that this happens and hold your nerve. And really do make it happen. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We must send a message that we are not against the pragmatic demolition of listed buildings and to bring forward a proper vision as soon as possible for the centre of Haverhill. So, can I propose deferment of this application with a very strong message that we want it to happen and want it to happen as soon as possible? I don't want Gurteens to go away from this particular meeting saying that we're not in favour of it. But we want the very best for Haverhill within a sensible solution. And I think it is emerging. We've nearly got the final vision. We should just wait, but urge Haverhill to really make it happen.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. I'll throw something else in here. We've got the areas in pink up there, which I think everybody I've heard so far doesn't appear to have too much concerns with. And we've got in part the areas that are holding Gurteens up with their current operation. I wonder if there's any way that we could look to approving the pink bits at this stage and bring the rest of it back, as is suggested, when we get the master plan. I'm just here to complicate things. Councillor Marley.
Thank you, Chairman. We've had some excellent presentations and different viewpoints, plus we've had the advantage of a site visit, which is always helpful. I'm comfortable with what Gurteens are suggesting up to the point of Building 8. I think it's Building 8 on my right hand. And the Northern Light Building. And that is the one that's giving me the greatest cause for concern. It's a very, very distinctive building and a huge sort of heritage asset to Haverhill. And I haven't really heard any justification for taking that building down. I understand about wanting light into the back of building 7, but there are plenty of offices that don't have natural light on every side. And I haven't really heard anything that gives me comfort that people have really explored a reuse for building 8. So I'm perfectly happy to go along with the chairman's suggestion. The buildings in pink, I think I would be more than comfortable going along with, but building 8, I would like more information about reuse, possible reuse, and more work put into how we could retain that building for Haven. So all I need to hear from the officers really is it possible to do what the chairman's suggesting? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If members were minded to support the demolition of the pink buildings on the phasing plan, I think what we would have to do is defer the application, because we can't pick and choose parts of the application that we want to determine. I would suggest that the item was deferred so that the officer can go back to the applicant and see if they would agree to amending their scheme so that it just deals with the pink phased area at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wade.
I would like to support that suggestion. This authority has adopted master planning as the way forward of the planning process. Unfortunately, too often we allow applications in advance of master planning. That's a separate issue. I think when we have an opportunity, as we do here, a very short period of time to get a master plan in place, we should seize it. And that will also allow the applicant to perhaps alter the application so that the pink buildings can be looked at separately. I don't see the point in demolishing building 8. I wasn't on the site, I said, but I have seen it before, which is a really interesting industrial building. There are too few of those, and we ought to honour our industrial heritage. Of demolishing it without a proper plan in place, that just seems ridiculous to me. So if we could adopt whoever's proposal was to defer it and go back, then I would support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Byrne, you want to come back?
Yes, just very, very quickly. I don't think this is about Haverhill holding our nerve. We are very robust and determined what we want for Haverhill and High Street. And if we can preserve Building 8, Northern Lights, by the consultants that are dealing with the master plan to come up with some ideas about how we can develop that and retain that, I think that's what we owe the residents of Haverhill. We should try and retain Building 8 as part of our heritage, as well as supporting Gurteens, because we do appreciate and respect Gurteens as being very influential in our town, but at the end of the day, it's for the future. It's our children's future, and I would like to retain anything that we can. I think by deferring it and putting it back, whether it be for 6 months or however long, is the right thing to do. And can I say that the councillors here that live in Haverhill are quite passionate about getting it right this time. We've had 3 master plans in Haverhill, this is the 3rd one. We have got to get it right, and that's why we shouldn't be hasty and rush things through. So I obviously support the deferment. I propose back till September. Whether that's appropriate time or not, I don't know. I'll take advice from the officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Stevens, you proposed deferment, I think. Yes?
Yes.
The suggestion has been made over my shoulder that we go along with you on deferment. We follow that one and see whether we get a vote for it. But the pink areas, if Gurteens come back with a plan for just the pink bits to say demolish, then we can, with the head of planning and my agreement, we can go with deferment, demolition of the pink bits. So that's delay until we've got the master plan sorted. But if they come forward with an application to get rid of the pink bits, then we can approve that without bringing it back to committee. That's a suggestion. You happy with that?
Chairman, I'm happy.
Councillor Marks, you happy with that? Yep.
I think it's important that the consultants who are working on the master plan get in discussion with Gurteens as soon as possible and consider how this site could be developed to the benefit of Hayward as a whole.
Thank you. Right. I've still got a couple of names here. Do they still want to speak, or are they happy with the way we're going? You want to speak, Councillor Everett?
If I may please, Mr Chairman, I think that I would agree with what's been suggested. I think it's a way forward. I don't think, bearing in mind Gurteens, I suspect, would be keen to get on with this. If we defer it till September in its entirety, and that's almost another year gone by the time they start and organise themselves, whereas they actually be able to knock down the pink bits during a period of where the weather is reasonable and it won't be causing too many problems to them to get it removed. And also, just a comment regarding this is the third consultation. I'm pleased that Haverhill residents are so keen to make sure they get it right, and good luck to them. I think that it's right that they are as engaged as they are with regards to the master plan, but they'll have to make a decision at some point. So I think this is the best of both worlds, really. It gives the opportunity to Gurteens to start the process, retains the important buildings that people seem to be wanting to hang on to, and it gives them the opportunity to start. So I approve the current suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. If we go with the amended proposal to allow the demolition of buildings 9 and 11, and building 10 has already had consensus not a listed building. If we go with 9 and 11, we would still need the additional condition for the feasibility study because that is linked to any demolition, but we wouldn't need the phasing condition on this approval because it would purely be for buildings 9 and 11. So if members are happy with those amendments, we can go with that.
Happy, Councillor Stevens? Councillor Knox, Councillor Everett?
If I could just come back, I'm happy with that, but just curious to know that where there are other buildings marked in pink that fit between 9, 10 and 11, are we suggesting that those are also allowed to be demolished within that area, or are we just talking about literally buildings 9, 10 and 11?
Thank you. Yes, the small building to the right of building 9 is not considered to be, sorry, where's my pen? These two here are not really listed buildings, they're just redundant structures. And the bits you see here, the bits you see here are the metal clothing rail structures that were put on, so they're not really part of the listed building.
Will they be included within the suggested?
They would be removed,
Thank
yes.
you.
Okay, everybody happy? Right, propose for deferment, but with the addition that if the applicant comes back to apply for demolition of the pink bits, so that'll be technical term, subject to head of planning and chair's approval, they can do that. The rest of it is deferred until we get more progress on the master plan. All happy? Right, those in favour, please show.
So that application's deferred, unanimous.